Good morning, people. I sit down here on the boat this morning at the cusp of the solstice. The solstice tomorrow night at 21:48, I believe, Universal Time. We are drawing very near. As I start my little chit-chat and some idle time here in the morning, it's still not sunrise. I'm watching this video of this sailing last summer and remembering that with you. Beautiful stuff, man. That provides a lot of meaning. But at the moment, it's not like that. So we've actually got a relatively strong blizzard coming in here. This morning it's 11 below centigrade and snowing pretty hard. There's about a foot of snow in the cockpit of the boat, so not like some gigantic thing, but it definitely brings the city to a close and a stop. And so I don't really intend to go anywhere. Again, as we've discussed here on the channel, I'm very highly winterized on this boat. The boat is very well insulated, and I've got good furnaces and heating systems, so certainly not suffering. If you look at the snow there on the top of the boat, you would probably get an idea of how well it's insulated. I mean, around the furnace stack, it's melted back a touch, but everywhere else, it's pretty well on. If anything, this furnace I've got is too much until it gets down to about 20 below centigrade. Even now, I mean, certainly comfortable and doing everything. It's very dry on the boat, and if I'm going to run the furnace for a period of time, I really do need to have a hatch cracked, because otherwise it just kind of becomes unlivably much like a sauna. Nice problems to have, really. But anyway, winter living on the boat. We're kind of decked out and dolled out for the holidays. The sweetheart came up over the weekend, and she brings her touch. I probably wouldn't have any decorations other than empty scotch bottles on that table, but there's other influences there. But yeah, I love the winter on the boat and the opportunity to kind of slow my high energy butt down and hibernate a little bit and spend time in reflection and strategizing for the future. And certainly where we are at this moment of history, if any of you are paying any attention, well, this is a moment that is pregnant for the opportunity to strategize and consider and take analysis of the moment. I hope you are doing so. Certainly, as always, the I Ching has been out and present, and its message to me has been clear. Perhaps I will share that in another video. It's always accurate. How? I don't understand. But today, this morning, while the sun comes up, I want to propose to you a thought experiment. Very often, good philosophy involves thought experiments, and we're going to play a game. And we're going to consider something very interesting. Okay? So let me frame it like this. Let's say that you came to visit me and it was a snowy day like this, and we got up in the morning and made a nice breakfast and decided to go for a walk in the snow up the waterfront here and to see maybe what the birds of prey are doing, because they often winter in here. And let's say that we were going along and up the trail, and you slipped and fell, and you smacked your head on the ground. And it was a bad fall and an ugly fall, and you weren't too good for it, quite bewildered and kind of stunned. But let's say that when you woke up, you had caused yourself a certain amount of brain damage for real. And let's say that in that moment, you had forgotten everything that you thought you knew about either religion or spirituality or connection to life or the natural world or other people or anything. Like, all of that preconditioning and all the things that you've been told about who is wise and who is not, and what the revelation of God was and what was not, and what holy books were and what holy books were not, and all of that stuff was wiped clean from your mind. It was all gone. What would you do? Well, the first question to reflect on, which is really important, is would you care? If all of that was swept away, would it be a loss or would it be a gain? If all of that was swept away, would you feel lighter in your being, or would you feel that there was an inherent loss? I mean, it could be any of those or either of those. I would expect that for many of us, we wouldn't even recognize that we had lost anything. In fact, I think it would be most likely that you would get up off the ground and kind of shake your head and perhaps feel a certain amount of vigor and perhaps the need to walk off the trauma. I would expect that we would continue up the trail. I'd be concerned of you, of course, because of the fall that you had taken. But remember, you have forgotten all of these things entirely. You are looking at the world with fresh eyes. At that moment, getting up, walking up the trail with me on the snowy path in the sunrise, with the communion of the waterfront and the waterfowl and the birds of prey and the trees and a friend of yours, would you feel that your world had been diminished or enhanced by the loss of this memory? Well, that's up for you to answer, right? But I do expect, if we walked long enough, the beauty of the sunrise and the intimacy of the surroundings would engender in you a desire for understanding. The sense of connection is visceral and intimate. And anyone who has had a taste of visceral and intimate connection only wants more. Remember, you are no longer encumbered with the burden of how you're supposed to go about doing that. You are not encumbered with the prejudices of the past, with ideas such as some kinds of relating is better than others. You just have the naked expectation that relating is good, and you would embrace it. But you may ask yourself the question, because it is so precious, how is it that you would do it better? I think that is natural that that question perhaps would, in fact, arise. Being in that moment of connection and communion, you would ask yourself, well, how is it that I magnify this? How is it that I embrace this? How is it that I live my life such that this value is very forward in my being? And again, there's no guru standing in the way of that. No one standing between you and the divine experience. You're on your own. You don't even know that gurus exist. You are the sole leading authority on the nature of reality in the world, actually. You are, in fact, the divine mind. There isn't anything else. No one to tell you that there isn't. No idea in your mind that you are not the final authority about how it is to be you. That was all swept away in a fall. Now, there's an interesting aspect to this, too, that you can consider. Imagine if I were to pipe up and you were starting to ask these kind of questions yourself in this naked, innocent state, and I were to say, oh, well, this has all been solved. There's this book out there written by somebody who we don't know who it is, and it says that there was a woman that lived in a magical garden, and she talked to a snake in a tree, and it told her to eat a fruit, and, well, all this happened. Well, your response to that would be nothing but, like, what are you smoking, buddy? Like, that's nonsense. That is a worldview that to the naked, untainted mind makes no sense at all. To the prejudiced, poisoned mind, perhaps that is acceptable, because the poisoned mind has been preconditioned to accept absurdities. But remember, yours is not. Your prejudices and preconditioning have been swept away by nothing more than a fall on the ice, and you are facing the world with new, innocent, courageous, and untainted vision. In that case, there may be voices from the past or the current that would be useful to you, but it's worth contemplating which of those actually are and which of those are conclusively not. And in fact, in this case, you are uniquely well positioned to judge between those, as any kind of claim to authority or appeal to authority no longer applies to you. You recognize that any of these other voices, in spite of letters behind their name or what kind of hierarchical institution they are attached to, are simply other people who are walking up a snowy path at sunrise too. And it's possible that the things they say about the world might be interesting, but it's also possible that they are not, and that there is no other authority other than what comes from personal experience. No other authority than what comes from personal experience. And while their narrative of their personal experience might have some interest to you, in fact, it is only the narrative of your personal experience that ever informs you in how to live your own life. And you know this because the memories of authority and the rest have been swept away from you, again, because you just fell on the ice. Now, I do believe that there is a natural philosophy, a natural connection to things that does arise when the innocent, unfettered mind sets on a path of discovery for other. I believe that's true, and I do believe that there are good examples of individuals throughout history who have chosen to walk that path. I aspire to be one of those myself. I would encourage you to try the same. I'd like to hear what you discover on your way. My relationship to you is one of a traveling companion, really. If there's mentorship here, it's nothing more than encouraging you to try that for yourself. I want to know what you see when you climb that mountain, because you'll take a different path, and it'll be something that I am not privy to. But there is this, and to hearken back to our previous conversations, we as traveling companions may draw different maps, but all true maps are complementary. There will be nothing that is on any of our maps that are exclusionary to any other true maps, because we are in fact making a sincere attempt to create models of the real terrain with the authentic intent to transverse it, rather than who knows what, some other latent agenda, right? So here is my solstice message. As we've discussed on this channel, especially over the last year as my channel has been hacked, I've gotten away from the geopolitical and kind of systems theory analysis, and I've moved into a different way of relating to things, which is more occult, let's just say, because I know that it's necessary. If I'm going to communicate my message, the message must lay between the lines, otherwise I'm going to have trouble. As I work my occult enchantments upon you, it's nothing more than hoping that perhaps a slip on the ice would cause the scales to fall from your eyes, and that you would discover yourself suddenly to be the independent sole authority of the nature of reality and the rest, which you actually are, and to live your life accordingly. Anyone who does so, and does so in an honest, authentic, unfettered manner, discovers a hunger and a need and a role in the life process wherein community and connection are fundamental. We have said that the purpose of life here is to live a life of purpose, and purpose is found in connection with other. I'm not kidding. That's my map. There is a devil in the details, no doubt. I think the path up the mountain is easy, but it is steep and treacherous. I think the gurus want to tell you that it is long and arduous. And that you must rely on their expertise for guidance. No, I think it's straight up the cliff, actually. It's not guaranteed that you will make it. Slipping and falling is likely part of it. But it's far from certain that slipping and falling isn't success rather than failure, because it's a necessary aspect of trying. And it may be that the lessons that come from slipping and falling are more powerful than those that we imagine as success. That is, if one is interested, in fact, in having that naked, authentic communion and relationship with reality. I believe the latter. I think you have to live on the raw edge, honestly, but you know that. Anyway, it would be worth getting into a discussion about what the raw, naked conclusions of the unfettered mind are if they approach the real without encumbrance. That would be a worthy discussion. Like, what is it you see there in the ice and the snow on that cliffside, having made the summit? I have my opinion. Maybe we'll save that for a later vid. This is more about the process of going there rather than what you see. I do believe that there are a subset of journeyers, once again, who have made that effort, and there are a whole lot of people that have pretended to. On this almost darkest day of the year, this is a moment for planning voyages and creating strategies and fortifying oneself for adventures. That's what's on my mind. I hope to encourage the rest of you to do that as well. The future may be uncertain in some ways, but for those of you who have a hunger for adventure, you will be well satisfied. Cheers, people. Happy solstice.